What's up guys, UFC 288 just wrapped up and let's review it, man. Let's recap. The card was really building up nicely, especially with the prelim performances. There was only 2 decisions in the whole prelims, 5 finishes. We did have a controversial decision with Khaos Williams versus Rolando Bedoya. Even though it was very weird to watch, that fight was actually excellent too. Then the main card slowed down big time. Jourdain and Kron Gracie is a fight we probably don't even want to talk about. Jourdain tried to make that a fight. Kron Gracie was bringing back like 1993 pulling guard tactics. Movsar Evloev and Diego Lopes was an interesting one where Lopes was actually looking pretty promising in the first round and made Evloev look human out there. It reminded me of when like Lando Venata fought Tony Ferguson, that kind of thing. Belal Muhammad versus Gilbert was another decision. Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo was another decision. Only one finish in the entire main card was Xiaonan knocking out Jessica Andrade, which was crazy. That was insane. The rest of the main card, not so much. Let's start with the main event. Aljamain Sterling defeats Henry Cejudo by a split decision. 248-47s for him, and then 148-47 for Henry Cejudo. Derek Cleary, one of the judges, actually scored the 5th round for Sterling, which is absolutely insane. That was the most obvious round of the fight. Clearly Cejudo's round. Sterling cruised the entire 5th round knowing that he was ahead. There's no way you could have caved that to him. But Derek Cleary still goes down as one of the most questionable judges in all of MMA. But looking at the fighters, man, Sterling impressed me with what he was able to do in the striking. He uses reach and awkward angles to his advantage, and that kind of reach was giving Henry Cejudo a lot of issues. Many of Cejudo's punches were falling short. He wasn't used to fighting a guy that long. He did fight Dominic Cruz, who's similar, but Cruz doesn't fight long. That's the difference there. Sterling fights very long. He put the jab on Cejudo, a lot of front kicks, and whenever Cejudo got into him, it always ended up in the clinch, and that's where Sterling was landing more devastating knees because of his height advantage. But Cejudo showed great takedown defense. I mean, amazing wrestling defense, and we thought if Sterling was able to get this fight to the ground that he would have the most success there, but in fact he had the most success on the feet, just being the more active fighter. More output, more activity, and that was winning him the fight. Cejudo had a hard time of knowing when to strike from distance, whereas Sterling had no restrictions. He was able to strike the whole time. He was able to throw punches and kicks the whole time, not worrying about anything. Good performance from Aljamain Sterling, and honestly, for a 3-year layoff, Henry Cejudo looked pretty good, man. Not a lot of guys look that good being inactive that long. And he did allude to that. You know, he did say that he's been out for a while, and it looked like he was saying that he was a bit rusty in there. It's not an excuse because he decided to retire before. He didn't need to do that if he knew that he was going to come back. And number 2, he did take the fight against a champion and not a tune-up fight. So no excuses, but it's 100% understandable. And we know who the next fight is for Aljamain Sterling. Xiaonan. And it's only because Merab doesn't want to fight Aljamain. Aljo is going to fight Sean O'Malley, who's not even the #1 contender, but it does make sense with how the dynamic of his friendship with Merab is. And I don't like that fight for Sean O'Malley too much. Now, his striking is going to be a lot more dangerous than anything Aljamain has fought so far. Sean O'Malley is an absolute sniper and could find that chin better than anybody else Aljamain has fought. But Aljamain's wrestling and grappling with his strength advantage on paper should be a kryptonite for Sean O'Malley. As soon as Aljamain gets his hands on O'Malley, things could be really rough. But we cannot sleep on O'Malley's ability to scramble because he did show some good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu even in his tournaments for BJJ. So I do expect to see something impressive out of O'Malley when it comes to the grappling, but Aljamain's the best on the ground. There's nobody on his level except Merab, but you know. And as for Henry Cejudo, if he decides to keep fighting, he's unsure of it right now. Have him fight Merab. Cejudo was able to shake off a bit of the rust in there. If he could beat Merab, he's probably going to get an immediate title shot right after it. That's a big statement. He could beat Aljamain's friend, so there's a bit of a storyline there, so it would be very interesting. Then we go to the co-main event. Belal Muhammad defeats Gilbert by a unanimous decision. This was an unfortunate fight because Gilbert got injured in the very first round when he shot in that takedown. Credit to Belal Muhammad for defending it, but Gilbert's shot was a bit sloppy there, landing with all of his weight onto his left shoulder, and was very obvious he wasn't throwing any left punches. No jabs, no left hooks. All he was doing with his left hand was guarding himself. That was it, and he was fighting Belal Muhammad with essentially just a right hand and a couple kicks here and there. Belal Muhammad fought the way he had to. It wasn't his fault Gilbert got injured. He had to win the fight and he did what he had to do. Belal had some good body kicks and stuff like that. Like, it feels kind of disrespectful almost, one way or another, with crediting either guy here. Because if I start crediting Gilbert for his toughness and stuff, people are going to say, oh, you're disrespecting Belal Muhammad. I mean, look what he did out there. He showed up, you know? But then if I start crediting Belal Muhammad, people are going to say, oh, but Gilbert Burns was injured. You can't win with crediting either fighter in this fight. So I guess we credit both. Belal looked like Belal Muhammad out there. He didn't look bad at all. Switching stances constantly, good body kicks and stuff like that. He defended the takedowns and was intelligent in there. I mean, he even attacked the shoulder when it was injured. Kind of how Jose Aldo did against Korean Zombie. And then Gilbert Burns was extremely tough. This guy fought 4 rounds with one arm against one of the top contenders in the world and didn't get finished. He didn't really get hurt by a head strike or a body strike or something, which is very impressive. I just wish that wouldn't have happened. We would have saw a complete fight between 2 guys, and I don't like to take credit away from one of the fighters, but unfortunately that's what's going to happen from the fans. Everybody is going to remember this fight as Belal Muhammad could not finish a one-arm fighter. At least Aljamain did, right? I'm hearing that already. At least Aljamain finished TJ Dillashaw. Belal had 4 rounds and could have finished Gilbert Burns and not even come close to it. And man, when I say this, it is nothing against Belal at all. But man, the commentary was glazing that guy. I don't even think he wanted it. I don't even think Belal consented to that much glazing. They were on this guy the whole time, talking about a whole bunch of things for 5 rounds, man. I understand. Belal is good. We got it. He ate punches. He's smart for attacking the shoulder. Yes, he was switching stances very much. Heard that for 5 rounds. We got it. But I had to check on social media. Were people thinking the same thing? And it looked like most people watching was getting kind of tired of the Belal Muhammad glazing. And it doesn't have to be Belal Muhammad. Anybody in that position would have been really annoying to listen to. It looks like Belal Muhammad is probably going to fight the winner of Colby Covington and Leon Edwards. And as for Gilbert Burns, he needs to recover from the shoulder injury. I really wonder how bad it is. And when he comes back, let's have him fight Shavkat Rakhmonov. Then we go to Xiaonan knocking out Jessica Andrade in the very first round. A fighter punished that kind of aggression finally. Jessica Andrade has always had this like specific style of winging haymakers while running at the opponent. Zhang Weili dealt very well with it, and even Rose Namajunas did in the first fight. And with now Xiaonan doing the same thing, it looks like the fighters have finally addressed this old school style that Andrade has, because people have to remember, Jessica Andrade is like the biggest veteran in women's MMA. There's no female fighter in the UFC that has as many fights as she does. She's an old school fighter. And it's crazy with that amount of experience that she's never really adjusted to what she does. She's always fought this way every single time, and for the most part, very successful in 2 different divisions, even fought 3 divisions. But now she's not performing too hot in her last 2 fights. Xiaonan just placed that right hand on her and put her down. Some people said early stoppage. I can kinda see it. I don't think she was gonna get up from those ground and pound shots. She wasn't really defending herself that well. And the way she fell from the right hand was crazy. And Andrade has a fantastic chin, always throughout her entire career. That is one of the big themes of this card. A legendary iron chin gets cracked. Jessica Andrade got finished before, but this is a different kind of knockout she suffered. Dropped by 1 punch. We don't see that happen to Jessica Andrade. Before with Zhang Weili, it was a barrage of shots with knees and elbows and punches. And this is from a fighter who never had a knockout in the UFC before. It just shows that Andrade's chin is softening up just like Drew Dober's did. And I believe that establishes herself. Xiaonan deserves a title shot. And could you imagine how big it would be if she fought Zhang Weili? I don't know if they're friends with each other. They're both from the same place. But that would be a massive event, especially for China. And as for Jessica Andrade, she always bounces between 2 divisions, so she has a ton of opponents to pick from. But she definitely needs some time off after a knockout like that. Movsar Evloev defeats Diego Lopes by a decision. I thought Diego definitely won the first round, but for some reason the judges gave it to Movsar. He rocked Movsar on the feet and then almost caught him in an armbar and then went for a triangle. How does he not win the round? Movsar did not do anything equivalent to what Lopes did to him. It doesn't mean he would have won the fight. Movsar still won the fight regardless. He had a very good second and third rounds and pretty much just did what he usually does. Overwhelmed the opponent with output, mixed up the striking and the wrestling flawlessly, and landed some big ground and pound shots, especially in that second round. And it does make him look human. He is still undefeated, but that was pretty rough for him, man. From a debuting opponent, but I will have to say that Diego Lopes is very promising, man. He's a big, tall guy for the division. Great submission ability, interesting striking ability, but there is some sloppiness compared to the other guys there. If he puts things together, because he does train with Alexa Grasso, who has great boxing, I think he can be a real problem for these featherweights. But Movsar Evloev maybe put together that Bryce Mitchell fight again. I think it'll be a good one for him because he didn't just blow right through Diego Lopes. So I would say put that fight back together. Yeah, we don't talk about that next fight. I think we found the most boring style in MMA. It's not the wrestlers. It's the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that only know how to pull guard or attack Imanari rolls. That has to be the most boring style when it's not successful. When it is successful, it's actually extremely entertaining, but when it's not, Dober, for the first time in his UFC career, got knocked out. The Crimson Chin was finally cracked by Matt Frevola, landing a beautiful, powerful right hook counter in that crazy exchange. Matt Frevola finding a perfect shot like that and putting down Dober is something nobody expected. If they started training shots like that, I would have thought that Dober definitely would have a big advantage there and catch Frevola. That's how he would win the fight. But it went the other way around, showing how much better Matt Frevola is getting in his career. He's now on a 3-fight win streak, all first round knockouts. Crazy, man. Knocked out Amina Zaitar, Genaro Valdez, and now Dober. This guy went from more of a submission artist, like a decision fighter, to a knockout artist. Crazy how that changed for him. Dober does get hit a lot, but this was the guy that finally put him down. Insane, man. Out of all the guys Dober has fought, I did not think Matt Frevola would be the one to finish him with strikes. Amazing performance. He's now going to be in the top 15, and I would like to see him fight Dan Hooker next. I think that's a perfect next matchup for Matt Frevola. What about Kenny Nzechukwu submitting Devin Clark in the second round with a different kind of guillotine choke? He did have the grip of a rear naked choke on him. You could put that on someone if you have long enough arms. But he does it again. Just like we beat Carlos Ulberg, he came back after a rough start and finished his opponent. So in the beginning of the fight, he was kind of back and forth a bit. Kenny was landing some good shots, but then he got caught by a big straight right from Devin Clark. You can see the legs on that guy, man. He has a lot of power to push off from. And then the killer instinct was not really there for Devin Clark. He has a great explosion, but in terms of like fight IQ, hit the mental part of finishing the opponent, Devin Clark is not up there with some of the better guys. He was throwing like very short punches and elbows with not much power. He really needs to explode from distance to hurt you with something. But then Kennedy turned it around, reversed the clinch, and threw big elbows. Look at the difference between Devin Clark's elbows and Kennedy's elbows. Massive difference when it comes to delivering power. Like 4 of those elbows from Kennedy had Devin Clark wobbling. He almost hit the deck. And then in the second round, Devin Clark finally wrestled more. So he shot in a takedown. It was stuffed. He pushed it up against the fence after some strikes from Kennedy, and that's where the choke came in there. Perfect submission win for Kenny Nzechukwu, getting on a pretty good win streak here, and I would like to see him actually fight a top 15 fighter for that light heavyweight division. He's able to always come back. I wouldn't say his chin is necessarily that great, but his heart and recovery from these shots is better than other fighters. You have to really finish this guy, which has happened before. He's been knocked out. Jung Da-un knocked this guy out in the first round, so it can be done, but you really need to have that kind of power and precision to do that to him. If you just simply hurt the guy, he is hard to put away. You gotta shut his lights out completely. It is heartbreaking with this whole thing about his mom, passed away last year. He got into MMA because he needed money in order to help her with treatment and stuff. So I'm very happy for the guy. He absolutely deserves this. Hopefully he gets a bonus after that. All the best to Kennedy, man. He just needs a top 15 opponent, and I think a good fight would be him and Jimmy Crute. That would be a good one to put together. Jimmy Crute is ranked number 13 right now. And then we go into the controversial decision. What was this? Khaos Williams defeats Rolando Bedoya on a split decision. 229-28 for him, and then 30-27 for Bedoya. Yeah, when you hear scorecards like that, 3 rounds for one fighter, and then the other fighter wins off 2 rounds, you know there's something messed up about that decision. The rounds were pretty close. I would say the third round is unanimous. 100% Bedoya's. He hurt Khaos in that round. He countered him good with a hook and had some good leg kicks in there, wobbled him in that round. The first round, I would say, would go to Khaos. He landed bigger shots, and this is before Bedoya really went to the well. And this is before Bedoya went to the well with those leg kicks, which he did in the second round. And that's why I personally would have to give the second round to Bedoya, because those leg kicks were devastating. I mean, he had him buckled. Khaos was not on good legs for that round, and it took off a lot of his power from his punches. And here's the thing, man. This is a perfect example. If you ever want to point back to an example of a fight where big shots are swung but not really causing damage, this is the fight. Khaos Williams was so wild trying to get the big knockout. He was throwing huge shots, all leverage, all power and everything, so they would have to cause damage, right? That's a lot of people look at this kind of stuff. A lot of people look, oh, he swung big, so they have to be causing damage. This is a perfect example of that not happening. Yes, Bedoya does have a good chin, but more accurate than that is Bedoya was rolling with most of those shots. He was not getting hit clean by many of those punches. That's why Bedoya was not getting hurt by those shots. But the judges that gave Khaos a second round had to have been looking at those punches and saying, oh, he swung big, they're kind of landing, so he's causing more damage, right? He has to be causing more damage, right? That's not the case, man. That just shows a lack of understanding of striking. The judges showed that they're not that educated when it comes to striking. Now, was it a robbery? It was close. I would say there was a definitive winner. Definitely Bedoya won the fight, but the rounds were pretty close. It wasn't so one-sided. So I wouldn't call it a robbery necessarily, because Khaos did land some good shots, and Bedoya, even though he did land a lot of shots, he didn't have the kind of power to hurt Khaos the way that most guys would probably be able to. Close fight, but definitely Bedoya won. He showed great movement in the fight too. When we talk about like his technique, he was technically far superior than Khaos Williams, landing good counter hooks, but they were slapping hooks. He wasn't digging in there. He was kind of slapping across Khaos's head with his hooks. That's why he didn't see the necessary power to hurt him. If he really dug in with those hooks, Khaos would have been in some trouble there. But the leg kicks were the big thing. He was throwing some good combos like jabs into right low kicks and stuff, hurting Khaos. The thing about Khaos Williams' technique is there isn't much there, right? He doesn't have much skill, like much actual high-level technique. If only he developed a good jab. If he just developed a good jab, a lot of his issues, even with all the technical deficiencies that he has, a lot of the issues he has in fights would be solved because he has God-given power. This guy's one of the hardest punchers in the welterweight division. His entries, though, are completely lacking. He has no entries whatsoever. He doesn't throw feints out. He doesn't throw jabs much. His movement's not there. He just explodes with big power punches. And that's not going to fly with the better guys in the welterweight division. So hopefully Jamal Hill and those guys really hammer in how important a jab would be for him. Verna wrestled Marina, held her down for most of that fight. Parker Porter put the pressure on Braxton Smith, who gassed out quick, man. For a heavyweight to gas out in like a minute is crazy. That's like Dada 5000 cardio. Porter showed his veteran experience, the fact that he does have better cardio, got on top of him and just laid down the bombs. Ikram Aliskerov KO'd Phil Hawes in 2 minutes and 10 seconds of that first round. He was trying to find his shots. He was dealing with the big body kicks from Phil Hawes, who, as Joe Rogan had to mention, took a trip to Thailand, just like Khalil Roundtree. We always hear that reference. And he was showing some good body kicks and good check right hooks, but he was dipping his head to the left side a lot. And Aliskerov is very good. You cannot sleep on this guy. His only loss is to Hamza, and he gave Hamza a bit of an issue when it came to the wrestling. So this guy is extremely technical, has never lost since. That loss was a while ago, and he noticed Phil Hawes dipping his head over and over again. So he had the line of sight of where to pinpoint his right straight, and he actually did it once before he caught Phil Hawes with a head kick. So he threw a head kick at Phil Hawes, knowing that he was going to keep dipping his head to that side, and partially caught him with the knee. This seemed to have hurt Phil Hawes a bit. And that's where Aliskerov went crazy. Got him into the clinch to a body knee, big right hand that missed, and then put down the 1-2 on Phil Hawes, knowing where his head was going to be, and knocked him out cold. Walk-off knockouts are a thing of beauty in the sport. Aliskerov's going to be on a fast track to be ranked in this middleweight division. He's going to be a problem for a lot of guys. He called out Bo Nickel. I don't like that for Bo Nickel right now. The guy's not developed enough. He's a good wrestler, but he needs more MMA experience because Aliskerov would absolutely torch this guy in the feet. And he's not to underestimate when it comes to his submissions. Even his wrestling can give Bo Nickel some problems too. I would actually put Aliskerov up against Gerald Mearshart next. Claudio Ribeiro blitzing down Joseph Holmes. Not much to say about the technique of that fight, but just the power and the ferocity of his aggression was just way too much for Holmes. And that's pretty much the end of the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to give this a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.